outside? Should I run and hide? How do I take my company worldwide? Do you love the law? Did you watch Hee-Haw? What's the weirdest thing that you ever saw? What's it like in court? Favorite sport? Can you help with my book report? Is my hair too long? Am I right or wrong? And do you mind if I sing along to anything? Ask Alan anything in the world.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to this episode of Ask Alan, the podcast. I'm Alan Crone, the CEO of the Crone Law Firm, and I'm very honored and somewhat intimidated to have on the show today our Congressman from Memphis and West Tennessee, the Honorable David Kustoff. Congressman, thank you for coming on the show.
Hey, thanks for having me. It's good to be here. Where are you?
Where am I?
Yeah, where are you?
I am in my palatial office in downtown Memphis, Tennessee.
Okay, you ought to invite me sometime.
well, you want to invite me to you? Where are you? You want to invite me there, wherever you are.
So I'm in Memphis today. I'm in our district office in Memphis. You know, we've got obviously the office at the Capitol, but an office in Memphis, an office in Jackson, Dyersburg, and in Martin.
You know, ironically, I have been to your office in Jackson. It's near City Hall.
Right.
And I passed by one time and had some business at City Hall, and I stuck my head in, and your folks were very, very nice.
Thank you. Thank you. No, we've got, well, you know this. I mean, you're only as good as the people that work with you and for you. And, you know, I can be in the grocery store, wherever, and somebody says, hey, you did this for me, you did that for me. A lot of times, obviously, it's people who work with me, work for me, and they make me look good, and I'm very appreciative.
Well, I think you're right. You do have a lot of really, really good people working in your offices, and that's kind of one of the big keys to being a congressman, right? I mean, that constituency service.
Absolutely, and you know, it's interesting because you can imagine the issues, the complaints, the whatever issues you're trying to work through. A lot of them probably are the same going back myself, Congressman Fincher, Congressman Canner, Congressman Cohen, Congressman Ford. But with the pandemic, when things started easing up earlier this year, we were inundated with passport issues, and people wanted to get the heck away. They wanted to start traveling again. And that really became something that we focused on, and I think have done a pretty good job along with other congressmen and other senators, but it's really trying to get through that whole process, if you will, to get your passport, get it active, get it renewed, what have you.
And the congressional office can be very helpful for that sort of thing. What other kinds of constituent services predominate in your district offices? If somebody's got a problem, what are the kinds of problems they should bring to you? You
know, Alan, it varies. I mentioned the pandemic. You know, one thing when the stimulus checks were approved with the CARES Act, so this is going back to last year, people who were having trouble getting the physical checks, we were dealing with that. We were dealing with that a lot, but anything from the IRS to Social Security to Medicare, you know, you name it. We passport issues like I talked about, the Postal Service, anything dealing with the federal government. I would say probably, I talked about passports, probably right now the Postal Service and complaints about the Postal Service may rank up there among the top, but it varies depending on what the issue of the day is.
Well, I will say that we gave attribution to your office at the time, but during the height of the lockdown, your office was very helpful in communicating with us. The CARES Act, as it was being debated and passed in Congress, and the the PPP loans and all the things that were coming down. We were trying to get that information out to people, and your office was very helpful to us so that we could get accurate information out because there were lots of reports in the media that weren't always accurate. So I want to thank you personally for that, because it was very helpful to folks to know what was going on.
Well, I appreciate you saying that. And, you talked about PPP loans. That's something else that we tried to assist small businesses with when that was created during the CARES Act. But you bring something up, and it's something that we talk about a lot, is how do you best get information out to people? We rely a lot, like you do, with social media and various social media platforms. So if there's an issue coming up in Congress, something I voted on or about to vote on or issued a position on, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, whoever the congressman or the senator was, they might call a press conference or release something to the newspaper, TV station. And, we now know that people get their news, or maybe they don't get their news in a lot of different ways, in a lot of different fashions. How do people rely and get the information that they need to know what's going on? And it's, we continue to invent the wheel on that.
Yeah, I think a lot of public officials are, I don't want to say struggling with that, but really trying to be innovative. My former boss, the mayor of Memphis, Jim Strickland, your former law partner,
Wow.
He started a very simple mechanism of sending out emails, and he does it regularly, once a week, and it's been a tremendously effective way of communicating directly with the people. And 10 years ago, you wouldn't have thought to do that at all. You would have issued a press release or given a press conference or that sort of thing. So I'm glad to hear that the Congress is focusing on that as well.
And to your point, we send out a weekly newsletter email that we send out generally on Sunday afternoons. Some statewide blog said that it was the best congressional newsletter in the state. So you can take that for what it's worth. But you're right, just different ways and different avenues to get that information out. Now, you mentioned the mayor. How do you think he's doing?
I think he's doing
but I feel like now I'm interviewing you. How do you think the mayor's doing?
I think he's doing a fabulous job. I talk with him frequently, and he laments the crime situation in Memphis. I think that's such an overriding issue of everything. And at some point, I admire him for not just throwing up his hands, because so much of it is out of his control. But I think he thinks about it every day, and it's hard to be jubilant about what's going on in the city when we have so much crime. But having said that, there's so many good things happening, and ultimately the best fight against crime are good jobs and hope for people, so that they choose that path rather than a criminal path. But I think he's doing a great job, and I'm sad that for the city that he's term limited, and he will be mayor until the last day, and he'll work hard for the people of Memphis to the last day.
Yeah, no, he does work. He does work very hard. On that issue. So we had great news, the news of the decade, maybe the news of the half century, when our area landed Blue Oval City, the Ford plant that will be built in Haywood County. And we're bringing that up because you talked about great things in the city of Memphis and in the community. When companies were kind of kicking the tires, looking at the mega site, one thing, there were a lot of issues, obviously, but one thing they would look at is livability. So livability in the area, but also in the surrounding area. And that meant Memphis and Jackson and other larger cities, because you've driven that stretch of the interstate a lot. I want to ask you how many times over your life.
I couldn't tell you.
Yeah, but I mean, how close that the mega site is to East Shelby County. I mean, there are going to be people who work at the mega site. They may live in Haywood County, they may live in Madison County, Tipton, Fayette, but there are going to be a number of them who live in Shelby County because of the livability factors, because it is a good place to raise your family and to educate your children. So there are a lot of win-wins, and you've been here all your life, almost all your life. I've been here all my life, and sometimes the people who've been here the longest can be the most critical.
That's true too. You talk about you've been here all your life. You're a native Memphian like me, and I want to give a shout out to your late father, Bernie Kustoff, who was a lawyer here in Memphis and a good mentor to me and a friend to me. And can you talk a little bit about how being the son of Bernie Kustoff formed you in the man you are today?
Yeah, well, no, thank you for that. And my father liked you very much. Reason I became a lawyer probably is because of his influence, and like so many other people that got to work with their parents. I worked with my father from the time I got licensed to be a lawyer. Had a 2+ year hiatus when I was the U.S. attorney under President George W. Bush. But when it was time for me to leave, I went back to practice with my father and with Jim Strickland, and wouldn't trade any of it. I learned a whole lot from him. And you can think about life's little lessons, and you think about things that your parents tell you and told you. One thing he quoted, this name, a lot of people listening may not remember, but he quoted Lucius Birch one time. I remember thinking about some issue, and was it the right thing? Was it the wrong thing? Was it ethical? And my father, quoting Mr. Birch, said, and I'm paraphrasing, but something to the effect of, if you have to think about something, whether it's right or wrong, longer than 10 seconds, you probably know the answer to it. Those are things you don't forget, but really some great years. One thing that I'm proud of is that when we all decided, Robert and I, to run for Congress. So this is 2016 when Congressman Fincher decided that he was going to retire. After I'd won the election, it seemed like the right time for my father to retire. And so we went out at the same time, the last day of the year in 2016. And it was really an honor to get to practice with him.
Well, he was certainly, if you're looking for a role model on how to practice law, Bernie Kustoff certainly would be at the head of my list. He was hardworking. Somebody once told me the best thing you could say about a lawyer was that he was tireless and honest. And you could certainly say that about Bernie. He was tireless. One of my favorite Bernie Kustoff stories is Mayor said he would walk into the law office at 7 a.m. Bernie would already be there and say, "Good afternoon," because Jim was coming in at 7 instead of 6 or 5:30 or whenever Bernie came in. But it just showed how hard he worked. And I know you got that, learned that lesson and many others from him. And I would be remiss if I didn't bring him up when I was talking to you.
Oh, thank you. And to your point, my father really cared about his clients. I mean, really cared about his clients, and loved meeting with them and loved talking to them on the telephone.
And I guess that some of that rubbed off on you, I hope, in terms of your constituents.
So it's funny. I guess I'm probably old school. I'd much rather talk to somebody than send them an email, text message, or whatever. There's just so much lost. You can send me an email, maybe mean well, but I may misinterpret the tone or what you're trying to say. And so I'd much rather pick up the phone and do that. And that's something I learned from my father.
Yes. Well, I know you went to White Station High School and Memphis, what was then Memphis State, now the University of Memphis.
Right.
How does a young fellow from the mean streets of East Memphis get to the Congress of the United States?
Yeah. When you talk about that, I think about the Sopranos at New Jersey, and as we all know, it's nothing like that. It was White Station that time, and so that's the 1980s. Really a great place, and still a great school. I'll tell you that one thing I got to do last week, got to nominate young men and women for the military academies, which in this job is one of the best parts of the job. I tell you, if you ever get down about where you think the direction of the country's going, and we all know we've got a lot of partisan strife going on. You look at the young men and women that I get to meet with, these high school seniors that want to go to the military academies and lead, you don't walk away any way but proud. I mean, you really do. My point in all that is I get to nominate from all different schools. I nominated a young lady from White Station High School last week, and excellent candidate. And I think I've nominated from White Station maybe the last 3 or 4 years, which is really something. But it was a great school then, a great school now. Decided to stay home in part because the University of Memphis, then Memphis State, offered me a full scholarship, and I thought that was really impressive. So I narrowed down to X number of schools. Memphis won out, and they call it something different now, but there was a leadership scholarship. So the commitment was you had to have your grades, keep it at a certain level, but you had to agree to be a part of and lead different organizations on campus. And so I committed to do that and got very involved in a number of different organizations. We created a fraternity on campus there. I was president of a group called the Student Activities Council, which was really special. And I learned I tell you one thing about the Student Activities Council that still comes in handy today is we would work on events all over campus. As you know, concerts, because you were involved with the Student Activities Council, special events, speakers. And so on the speakers, remember one of the very first events, I probably shouldn't say the name, but I will. We had an event for Captain Jim Lovell, Apollo 13. We all know how famous he was. And I booked a big room at the University Center, had a lot of chairs set up. And about 10 minutes beforehand, it was obvious there weren't going to be several hundred people coming out to hear the speech that night for whatever reason. And a mentor of yours and mine, Dr. Don Carson, I remember was there in the room, and he started himself gathering chairs that were set up, pulling them back and stacking them in a corner. And so the lesson that I learned, Alan Crone, is that you always book a small room. And if you got more people in there, then that's great. It makes it look even more full. So don't book big rooms.
That is good advice. You and I were also part of the first salad ever served at the Rendezvous. You and I and a bunch of people took TV's Larry Linville and his wife to the Rendezvous. She was a vegetarian, going to the rendezvous. I'll say that again. She was a vegetarian going to the rendezvous. And long story short, you got Mr. Charlie Vergas. You told him about the situation, and he said, "Don't worry, I'll handle it." He went across the street to the Peabody.
Exactly right.
Made a salad, brought it across the alley, took it to her and gave it to her and said, "Ms. Linville, this is the first salad served in the Rendezvous restaurant."
Yeah, that was pretty neat.
And so that's one of my favorite stories that involves you and Charlie Vergas.
Now, you talked about Larry Linville. You and I know who Larry Linville is. I bet some people who are watching this, they may not know who Larry Linville is.
Yeah, I'll give everybody a hint. His nickname on the television show was Ferret Face, but he was Major
Frank Burns
on MASH back in the 70s and 80s. Even when we had him on campus in the mid 80s, he was a little bit of a used to be. I won't say a has been, because but his star was beginning to ebb at that point, I guess, maybe, or wane. It would be a way to put it. But
but on the has been. So the year before, it may have been my idea to bring Frank Burns to campus. Larry Linville, Don Knotts had come to campus, Barney Fife on the Andy Griffith show, and you couldn't put any more people in the room. It was similar to Larry Linville, but having Don Knotts, Larry Linville, there was something about those nostalgic TV stars that people wanted to come and hear them and get their autographs and all that stuff.
Yeah. No, it was, and like you say, that those experiences, the Student Activities Council, student government, fraternities, that sort of thing in college, it is very, very helpful in giving you a foundation for life, because you got to make mistakes, you got to experiment with things in a controlled environment. And I don't know about you, but for me, I've gotten the benefit of that all my life, I think.
I agree. Well, when you lead something like that, conducting a meeting, I don't know how many meetings I conducted when I was in college, how many meetings I led. Of course, I have meetings all the time that I usually chair the meetings. And you do fall back on what you learned all those years ago, at least I do.
Well, Congressman, I know that you could be doing just about anything that you want to do. You practice law. You could have been a business person. Why public service? Why did David Kustoff want to be a congressman of all things?
Yeah. Well, at that time, so this is going back to 2016. Again, Stephen Fincher had been the congressman. He decided to retire. And my wife, Roberta, and I, because we've got two children, and we were really concerned about the direction of the country. I mean, you look at it and you thought, we could be among maybe the first generation of parents to hand over a country to our children that's not as good as what our parents gave to us. And so we thought could lead. I mean, Alan, anybody can go to Washington and vote yes or no. Sometimes maybe that's not as easy, but when can you lead on different positions, take stands, be creative? And I thought, and we thought that, and I say we because Roberta and I are our partnership, that we could do it. And as you know, it's challenging. And maybe, I don't know if it's more challenging than it's ever been or not, because sometimes I'm on the House floor and I think about stories that I've heard about senators beating each other with a cane. True story. You think about just for a moment, everybody who's watching and listening. If you were a congressperson during the Civil War and wondering, am I going to be the last class of congressmen to ever serve the nation? Will the nation survive? And then in the times after the Civil War, immediately after the Civil War, and during the First World War, and during the Second World War, and all the challenges that we faced as a nation, there've been some really tough times. I don't know how these times compare to that, but my sense is there've been tougher times, and so we'll get past all this. Hopefully, I can be a part of getting this past all this. But we are in a tough moment in time, no doubt about it.
That's true. That's true. So let's look forward. 2022. What are your plans for 2022? And what do you think? I know it's probably not too early to start talking about the midterm elections. What do you think is going to happen a year from now in November?
Well, I truly think that, and I'm biased, but I think that the Republican Party will control the House of Representatives and probably the Senate in next November, really for three reasons. One is, if we know historically in midterm elections, which next November would be, the party out of power gains seats. And to kind of set the table right now, as you know, in the Senate, it's 50 to 50, 50 Republican senators, 50 Democratic senators. It doesn't get much closer than 50-50. Can't get any closer than that. In the House of Representatives, the Democrats have about a 4 vote margin. There's one vacancy, 3 or 4 votes right now. So I think we'll gain. Second thing is, you know, every 10 years, there's redistricting that goes on all around the country. The congressional districts get redrawn. The state legislative districts get redrawn. This year, or 2022, that goes to the benefit of the Republicans based on which states gained seats like Texas and Florida and North Carolina, which states lost seats like New York and California. That's to the Republicans' benefit. And three, and I'm gonna be partisan, I think the Democrats have been doing a lot of crazy stuff in terms of the votes that they've taken, the legislation that they've proposed, the spending, which, you know, in the House of Representatives still has to go to the Senate, but has approved almost $5 trillion in new spending above and beyond what it takes to run the federal government. And that's led to a lot of problems. These supply chain issues, the runaway inflation, and people remember them. And I'll point you and everybody watching to the election results recently in Virginia and in New Jersey, where Virginia is not a purple state anymore, it's really a blue state. And you had the Republican candidate for governor, lieutenant governor, and attorney general sweep in Virginia, just a year after Biden won Virginia by a comfortable margin. In New Jersey, which may be about the bluest state of them all, the Republican candidate for governor almost won that election. And you had a powerful Democratic state senator who was beaten by a truck driver who spent very little money. So I think that sets it up and shows that 2022 could be a wave election year for Republicans, a lot like 1994 and 2010.
Well, time will tell. And I appreciate, Congressman, I appreciate your service and your family sacrifice, because I know it's not easy to go back and forth to Washington with young children. You have 2 great kids and a great wife, and I know you're thankful about that as we head into Thanksgiving. This is when that's being shot. I know you're thankful for your family.
Absolutely. We all have a lot to be thankful for. We really do. And as we put 2021 in the rearview mirror, we need to focus on the positive as we go into 2022. I know I'll do that, and everybody who's watching wants to do that, and so we'll continue to lead the way.
Well, Congressman, thank you for your time. I've enjoyed the conversation. Maybe we'll do this again sometime to maybe talk a little bit more about specific issues, but thank you so much. Have a happy Thanksgiving. Give my best to Roberta and your mom and your kids for me. And I know you've got a full pack schedule, so we appreciate the time you were able to give us today.
Thank you so much. Happy Thanksgiving to everybody.
Thank you. I want to thank everybody for listening too. As always, thank you so much. If you enjoyed this program, please share it on social media or email it to someone you think might enjoy it. If you want to email me, here's my email address for topics, or if you want to ask me a question to cover on another show, please do that as well. I'm Alan Crone, the CEO of the Crone Law Firm. Congressman Kustoff is going to go and serve his constituents, and I'm going to go get some justice. So thank you all very much.